It is late now. The day has already folded itself away. Lights are low, sounds are few, and nothing is in a hurry anymore. This is a good time to listen to something that does not demand attention, something that simply stays nearby. Tonight, the mind drifts toward dreams. Not the dreams themselves, not yet, but the long and quiet way people once tried to understand them. Before laboratories, before charts and measurements, before explanations needed to be exact. Long ago, people noticed the same thing we still notice. That sleep comes whether we ask for it or not. That dreams arrive without warning. That they feel real while they last, and distant almost immediately after. In early nights, under darker skies, dreams felt closer to the world around them. The wind made sounds that seemed meaningful. Firelight shifted shapes on stone walls. Shadows moved even when nothing touched them. When people slept, their dreams did not feel separate from waking life. They felt like another room in the same house. A room entered quietly, then left without a door ever fully closing. In small villages and wide deserts, people woke from dreams and spoke about them slowly, not with excitement, but with care. A dream was something to be handled gently, like a fragile object brought back from somewhere unfamiliar. Many believed dreams were messages, though not always clear ones. They were not instructions exactly, more like murmurs, hints, soft suggestions that did not explain themselves. A dream of water might mean change, or travel, or simply water. No one felt rushed to decide. Meaning could wait. Some thought dreams came from outside the body, that they entered quietly during sleep, like visitors who did not knock. Others believed the soul itself wandered while the body rested, returning before morning without much effort. In these early explanations, nothing needed proof. Stories were enough. Shared experiences mattered more than certainty. People noticed patterns. They noticed that children dreamed differently than elders, that the sick dreamed more intensely, that grief made dreams heavier and joy made them lighter. They did not argue much about it. Dreams were accepted the way weather was accepted, sometimes gentle, sometimes strange, always passing in ancient homes. Mornings began slowly. Someone might mention a dream while bread baked nearby. Another might listen while tying sandals. The dream would be spoken aloud, then allowed to settle into the air and disappear. No one expected answers right away. Some cultures believed dreams were visits from ancestors, not dramatic visits, not speeches or warnings, just quiet appearances. A familiar face standing nearby, watching, leaving without saying much. These dreams were not feared. They were comforting, a reminder that the past was not entirely gone. Others believed dreams were rehearsals, small, harmless versions of things that might happen later, a way for the mind or spirit to practice without consequence. There was comfort in that idea, that danger could be experienced safely, that loss could be softened by distance. Night after night, dreams arrived and left. People aged. Cities formed. Paths became roads. Dream explanations changed slowly, almost unnoticed. In early temples, dreams were sometimes welcomed intentionally. People slept in sacred places, hoping for meaningful visions, not spectacular ones. just clear ones. A dream, received in such a place, was treated with respect. It might be discussed quietly with a priest or elder, not to be judged, but to be understood gently. No one raised their voice about dreams. That would have felt wrong. Dreams belonged to the night, and night belonged to silence. As centuries passed, thinkers began writing about dreams. Not quickly, not confidently. Their words wandered, much like dreams themselves. Some believed dreams revealed truth. Others believed they revealed confusion. Many believed they revealed both at once. There was no pressure to decide which view was correct. Disagreement was soft. A dream could be meaningful without being useful. That idea sat comfortably for a long time. People noticed that dreams often borrowed from daily life. Faces from the market, paths walked earlier in the day, voices half remembered. But they also noticed that dreams rearranged these things. They stretched them. They blended them. They slowed them down or rushed them without explanation. This made dreams feel familiar and foreign at the same time, like returning to a place that looks almost right, but not quite. Ancient nights were quiet, but not empty. Crickets sang. Animals moved nearby. Fire crackled. Dreams felt like part of that soundscape, another natural occurrence. No one demanded that dreams behave logically. Logic belonged to daylight. At night, imagination was allowed to drift. Some dreams were forgotten before sunrise. Others lingered for years. People did not try to control which state. They accepted that the mind kept what it needed and let go of the rest. And so, long ago, dreams were not problems to be solved. They were experiences to be noticed. Gently, without urgency, the night continued doing what it always had, bringing rest, bringing images, then quietly stepping aside for morning, and people waking slowly carried those dreams with them, not as answers, just as something that had passed through. As mornings followed nights, people noticed how quickly dreams faded. They slipped away like mist when the sun rose higher. Some tried to hold on to them by speaking them aloud. Others preferred silence, letting the feeling remain without words. In places where writing had not yet settled into daily life, memory did the work. A dream remembered was a dream that mattered, or at least that was the thought. If it vanished, it was allowed to vanish, without regret. This gentleness shaped how dreams were understood. They were not possessions. They were visitors. Across long stretches of time, stories about dreams traveled slowly. They moved with traders, with families, with wandering storytellers. Each retelling softened the eddies a little more. In one place, a dream might be seen as advice. In another, as a warning. In another still, as nothing more than the mind stretching itself during rest. No single explanation replaced the others. They existed side by side, quietly. In ancient Egypt, dreams were written down with care. Not every dream, but certain ones. The ones that lingered, the ones that returned. These dreams were sorted gently. Some were considered favorable, some less so. But even then, the tone remained calm. A troubling dream did not cause panic. It invited patience. The dreamer might wait. They might observe the following days. They might notice small changes and connect them loosely to what was seen at night. Nothing was rushed. In Greece, Philosophers spoke about dreams with thoughtful pauses. They wondered whether dreams came from the body or from somewhere beyond it. They did not speak as if the answer were close. Dreams, to them, were a reminder that humans did not fully know themselves, that the mind had quiet corners, that sleep, unlocked rooms rarely visited during the day. This was not unsettling. It was familiar. People had always known that parts of life stayed hidden. In many cultures, dreams were considered a kind of bridge, not a dramatic bridge, not a glowing one, just a simple crossing between waking and sleeping, a place where the rules loosened slightly. In that crossing, time behaved differently. Past events appeared beside future worries. Old faces stood next to imagined ones. No one expected dreams to organize themselves. Some believed animals dreamed too. Watching dogs twitch in sleep or horses shift their weight at night made this seem reasonable. If animals dreamed, then dreaming must be natural, not sacred, not strange, just part of being alive. This idea brought comfort. Dreams did not need grand meaning if they belonged to everyone. In colder regions, long nights made dreams feel longer. Sleep stretched on, and dreams seemed to weave together. One image flowed into the next without pause. People waking from these nights sometimes felt as though they had traveled. Not far, just enough to feel slightly displaced. They did not try to describe every detail. That would have felt unnecessary. What mattered was the feeling left behind. Heavy, light, uneasy, calm, these feelings guided interpretation more than images did. In some households, elders were asked about dreams, not because they had answers, but because they had experience. They had lived long enough to see which dreams mattered and which dissolved on their own. Often, the elder would listen and say very little, perhaps a nod, perhaps a simple comment. Then life would continue. This quiet response was important. It taught patience over time. Dream explanations absorbed beliefs about gods, spirits, and fate. But even then, dreams themselves remained soft. They did not shout their meanings. A dream about falling might be seen as fear, or change, or simply the body relaxing too deeply. All possibilities were allowed. As writing spread and books became more common, dreams entered texts. They appeared in myths and histories. They nudged events forward or paused them briefly. Yet even in stories, dreams rarely took center stage. They were pauses, moments of reflection. They gave characters time to think. This reflected real life. Dreams were spaces where nothing had to be done immediately. They offered distance. Night after night, people lay down and accepted whatever came. Some nights brought clear images. Some brought only darkness. Both were considered normal. No one demanded consistency from dreams. And so, long ago, dreams were explained slowly, with uncertainty, with care. They were allowed to remain partly unexplained, which made them easier to live with that as years passed and generations quietly replaced one another. The way people spoke about dreams continued to soften. What once felt mysterious became familiar through repetition. Not understood exactly, but accepted. In many places, dream talk shifted with the seasons. Long winters brought deeper sleep and longer dreams. Short summer nights left dreams thinner, lighter, sometimes unfinished. People noticed this without trying to explain it too carefully. Seasonal changes did not require theories. In households where several people slept in the same room, dreams felt shared in a quiet way. Someone might stir, another might murmur. Morning would arrive with the sense that something had passed through all of them. Not the same dream, just the same night. Dreams often borrowed familiar spaces. Fields walked daily, paths to water, rooms lit by fire or oil lamps. These places appeared altered, but not unrecognizable. A wall slightly longer, a doorway that led somewhere else. No one felt troubled by this. Dreams were allowed to rearrange things. In early writings, some thinkers suggested that dreams were leftovers, fragments of thought that had not settled during the day. This idea did not erase older beliefs. It sat beside them quietly. A dream could be a message and a leftover at the same time. This flexibility mattered. It meant people did not have to choose between imagination and belief. In places touched by early medicine, dreams were observed with gentle curiosity. Physicians noticed that fever changed dreams, that hunger shaped them, that pain bent them into strange shapes. These observations did not remove wonder. They added texture. Dreams were not reduced. They were expanded. Some dreams were considered empty, not meaningless, just empty, like bowls after a meal. These dreams did not require attention. They passed easily. Others stayed. They returned nights later with small changes. A face closer, a voice clearer. These recurring dreams were treated patiently. People waited to see if they would fade on their own. Often, they did. There was comfort in that. As trade routes connected distant places, dream ideas traveled too. Stories from far lands introduced new interpretations. Dreams as omens, dreams as echoes, dreams as nothing at all. None replaced the others completely at night. Belief softened anyway. Sleep made people equal. Kings dreamed. Farmers dreamed. Children dreamed. No one carried authority. Into dreams, this equality gave dreams a quiet power. They belonged to everyone, and to no one. Some people learned to wake slowly on purpose, not opening their eyes right away, letting the dream settle before daylight erased it. This was not ritual, just habit, a gentle pause between worlds. As centuries moved forward, dream explanations became more detailed in books, but simpler in daily life. People continued to treat dreams as companions rather than problems. A dream could be spoken of once and never again. That was enough. Others were remembered without words, just a feeling carried through the day. Dreams did not demand interpretation. They allowed it quietly. As night returned again and again, people lay down with familiarity. They knew dreams would come or they would not. Both outcomes were fine. There was trust in that rhythm. Dreams belonged to the dark hours. Morning belonged to movement. Between the two, there was no sharp edge, only a slow crossing, and his understanding drifted forward into later times. The old ways of seeing dreams did not disappear. They simply rested underneath newer ideas, waiting like dreams themselves, never gone. Night returns without ceremony, not as something new, but as something familiar. The same darkness, settling again. the same quiet agreement between the world and sleep. In this continuation, people are no longer surprised by dreams. They expect them, gently, like a tide that comes in whether watched or not. As societies grew larger, dreams still remained personal. Crowded cities did not change that. Streets filled with voices during the day, but nights softened everything. When sleep arrived, even busy minds slowed. Dreams slipped through the noise. In ancient cities, people slept close together, above shops, beside family, near animals. Dreams absorbed all of it. The smells, the sounds, the closeness. A dream might include a neighbor's voice or the creak of wood overhead. No one questioned this. Dreams borrowed freely. Some thinkers began suggesting that dreams were mirrors, not sharp ones, clouded mirrors. They reflected concerns, memories, small, unfinished thoughts. But the reflection was never exact. It bent and softened. This idea felt reasonable. It did not demand belief. Others preferred older explanations, that dreams arrived from elsewhere, from gods who spoke quietly, from ancestors who visited briefly. There was no argument between these views. They coexisted like neighbors who nodded, but did not speak much. In daily life, dreams were still treated lightly. Someone might mention one while washing hands. Another might listen without comment. Dreams did not interrupt routine. In some places, however, dreams began to take on ceremonial roles. Not every dream, just certain ones. A leader dreaming of water, a farmer dreaming of fire. These dreams were noted, not feared, just noticed. Even then, patience remained. A dream was not acted upon immediately. Time was allowed to pass. People believed that if a dream truly mattered, it would return. This belief reduced anxiety. If a dream did not return, it was allowed to leave. In households, children learned about dreams by watching adults. They saw calm reactions. They learned not to rush, meaning this quiet education shaped generations. Dreams became part of ordinary life, not mystical events, not puzzles, just nighttime experiences. As writing systems matured, some tried to categorize dreams. They made lists. They created symbols. These efforts were careful, almost hesitant. There was awareness that dreams resisted. Ordered a symbol might mean one thing today and another. Tomorrow, this inconsistency was accepted. Dreams were not required to stay consistent, to be respected. In some philosophies, dreams were described as shadows of thought, not thoughts themselves, just their shapes. Shadows lengthen and shrink without explanation. This metaphor pleased many people. It explained without controlling. In religious traditions, dreams sometimes carried weight, but even then, the tone remained restrained. A dream message was rarely urgent. It was subtle, easily misunderstood. This uncertainty encouraged humility. No one claimed perfect understanding of dreams. As the centuries continued, dream explanations gently layered themselves. Old beliefs did not vanish. They settled. Lower. New ideas rested. On top, at night, distinctions blurred anyway. A dream did not announce whether it came from the body, the mind, or something beyond. It simply arrived. People accepted that mystery could exist without discomfort. In quiet moments before sleep, some welcomed dreams. Others did not think about them at all. Both approaches were fine. Dreams did not demand invitation. They arrived, whether expected or ignored. As sleep deepened, the world softened. Edges faded. Sounds blurred. Dreams began their slow work again. And people, long ago, rested inside that rhythm, not needing answers, just letting the night pass through them. As nights repeated themselves, dreams became predictable in their unpredictability. People expected variety. Some nights brought movement. Other nights brought stillness. This inconsistency was not unsettling. It matched life closely enough. In many places, people noticed that strong emotions during the day often softened at night. Anger rarely stayed sharp in dreams. Fear blurred. Joy stretched into gentle scenes that did not ask for much. Dreams seemed to smooth the edges of experience. Because of this, some believed dreams were a kind of balance, a quiet adjustment, the mind easing itself back into place after the strain of waking hours. This explanation felt kind. It suggested that dreams were not interruptions, but care among healers. Dreams were watched carefully, but not obsessively. A change in dreams could signal recovery or decline, but it was never a single dream that mattered. Patterns mattered more, and even then, nothing was certain. Dreams were considered unreliable witnesses. They hinted. They never testified clearly. In long-established traditions, dreams were sometimes grouped by feeling rather than image. Heavy dreams, light dreams, restless dreams. These descriptions were loose. They allowed room for difference. One person's heavy dream might be another's calm one. This subjectivity was accepted without debate. Dreams belonged to the dreamer. In some cultures, speaking too much about dreams was discouraged, not forbidden, just unnecessary. Dreams were private experiences. Sharing them required trust. A dream spoken carelessly could lose its softness. Silence protected it in other cultures. Dreams were shared more openly, around fires, during long evenings. Even then, the telling was slow. Pauses were common. Details were forgotten and not replaced. No one corrected another's dream. That would have felt strange, as belief systems grew more complex. Dreams remained simple. They resisted decoration. Even when scholars wrote long passages about them, dreams themselves stayed brief. A moment, a scene, a feeling. This contrast kept explanations grounded. Dreams never became too important. They stayed just important enough. Some thinkers suggested that dreams were rehearsals for thought, that ideas first appeared there, softened, before arriving during the day. This made sense to many. It explained why solutions sometimes appeared after sleep, but even this idea was held loosely. No. One demanded that every dream be useful. Useless dreams were welcome. They filled the night without obligation. In homes where illness lingered, dreams were sometimes watched with quiet concern, but concern never became fear. A strange dream was not a sentence, just a signal to wait and observe. This patience protected people from panic. It also allowed life to continue calmly in temples and sacred spaces. Dream stories sometimes gathered layers of meaning, But outside those spaces, dreams returned too. Their ordinary place, a passing experience. As societies changed, sleep patterns changed too. Shorter nights, later evenings, dreams adapted without comment. They always had. Some nights, dreams disappeared entirely, or so it felt. People woke feeling blank, rested, perhaps, or not. This absence of dreams was not troubling. It was simply another way night could be. Over time, dream explanations grew quieter, less confident. This was not confusion. It was comfort. People learned that not knowing everything was acceptable. Dreams taught that lesson gently. They arrived without explanation. They left without apology, and life continued smoothly around them, night after night. The same rhythm held. Sleep, dreams, or no dreams. Morning. This steady pattern made room for uncertainty, and in that room, people rested as the night continued. Its slow return each day, dreams settled even deeper into the background of life. They were present, but not demanding. Like distant sounds that one grows used to hearing without listening closely. People began to notice that. Dreams often repeated familiar emotions rather than familiar events. The setting might change, the faces might blur, but the feeling remained steady. A sense of being late, a sense of searching, a sense of standing quietly and watching something unfold without taking part. These feelings were recognized, even if the images were forgotten. Some believed that this repetition was the dream's true work, not to show new things, but to revisit old ones gently, over and over, until they lost their sharpness. This idea brought relief. It meant that even difficult dreams had a purpose without needing interpretation. In quieter traditions, dreams were compared to echoes. Not voices themselves, just the sound left behind after something had already happened. An echo does not explain. It simply repeats, softer each time. This comparison felt right to many people. It allowed dreams to exist without pressure. As communities, aged dream stories became shorter, less detailed, more impression than narrative. A person might say only, "I dreamed of walking," and leave it at that. No one asked where the walk led. That detail was not required. In some places, people believed that speaking a dream too clearly could disturb it, that clarity belonged to waking life. Dreams preferred softness. Because of this, many dream explanations faded into gesture rather than language. A shrug, a quiet smile, a simple acknowledgement. This wordless understanding kept dreams from becoming heavy. They stayed light enough to carry without effort. As belief systems continued to evolve, dreams were sometimes pulled into debates about the soul or the mind. But outside those debates, among ordinary people, dreams remained unchanged. They were not theories. They were experiences. Night brought them. Morning took them away. Nothing more was required. Some people learned to notice the moment just before. Waking, the instant when a dream loosened its hold. That drifting pause felt peaceful. It reminded them that nothing stayed. Fixed, not even thoughts. This awareness did not come from study. It came from repetition, night after night, as lamps burned lower and streets quieted. Dreams continued their quiet passing through human lives. They asked for nothing, they offered nothing clearly, and yet they remained. Old explanations rested beside new ones, not competing, just existing. Dreams were not solved, they were lived with. And so, as understanding moved forward, it did not erase the past. It layered gently over it, like sleep itself, deepening without sudden change. The night held everything without effort, belief, uncertainty, rest, and somewhere within that stillness, dreams continued, unexplained, unbothered, passing quietly into the next morning. Night arrives again, not as a beginning, but as a continuation. The same slow dimming of sound, the same soft surrender of the body. People long ago did not think of sleep as an event. It was simply something that happened, like breathing, becoming deeper without being told to do so. By the time ideas about dreams reached later ancient periods, people were already comfortable, not fully understanding them. That comfort shaped everything that followed. Dreams were no longer surprising. They were expected guests, familiar enough to ignore, interesting enough to notice. In these later times, people began to speak more often about the mind, though not in the modern sense. The mind was not a machine. It was more like a landscape, quiet in places, crowded in others. Dreams were thought to wander through this landscape at night, passing through memories, worries, small joys, and old fears. Not stopping long anywhere, just moving. This movement felt important. Stillness belonged to waking life. Dreams preferred motion. People noticed that dreams rarely stayed in one place. A scene would shift without explanation. A person would become someone else. A road would turn into a room. This fluidity did not confuse them. It matched how thoughts already felt when no one was watching closely. In daily life, thoughts jumped too. Dreams simply did it more openly. Some believed that during sleep, the mind loosened its grip, that it stopped holding things in neat order. This loosening allowed thoughts to drift freely. The idea was not frightening. It felt restful. Letting go was part of sleeping. In homes lit by fading lamps, people stretched out on simple beds or mats. The body grew heavy. The mind followed more slowly. Dreams slipped in during that delay. They were not invited with intention. They arrived when the body stopped resisting. In these periods, dream interpretation became less dramatic. Earlier fears and grand meanings softened. Dreams were still respected, but they were no longer treated as urgent messages. Urgency belonged to daylight. At night, patience ruled. Some thinkers suggested that dreams were what remained after effort ended. After tools were set down, after conversations stopped, after plans paused, dreams filled the empty space. This explanation did not deny older beliefs. It simply added another layer. A dream could be both sacred and ordinary. People were comfortable holding both ideas at once. In quiet households, someone waking from a dream might lie still for a moment, not analyzing, just noticing. The feeling lingered briefly, then faded. This fading was expected. Dreams were not meant to stay sharp. As societies developed more structure, people also noticed that dreams ignored structure completely. They did not follow rules. They did not respect status. A ruler could dream of being lost. A laborer could dream of command. Dreams did not correct themselves. This made them feel honest. Some believed dreams revealed truth not through meaning, but through mood. The way a dream felt mattered more than what it showed. A calm dream suggested balance. A restless one suggested tension. These were not diagnoses, just gentle observations. In later ancient traditions, dreams were sometimes linked to memory, not memory as a record, but as a soft collection of impressions. Dreams stirred these impressions without order. They placed old moments beside new ones. A childhood sound might appear beside a recent worry. This blending felt natural. Memory itself was never neat. People accepted that the mind carried more than it could sort. Dreams did not try to sort it either. They simply moved through it. As nights passed, this understanding settled in quietly. Dreams were no longer puzzles. They were processes, something the mind did while the body rested. This idea reduced fear. A strange dream did not mean danger. It meant the night was doing its work. In this way, dreams became part of health, not separate from it. Sleep healed the body. Dreams smoothed the mind. Nothing needed to be forced. People lay down trusting this rhythm, the same rhythm their parents had trusted, and their parents before them. The night held them. Dreams passed through. Morning returned, and life continued without needing dreams to explain themselves. As time moved on, people noticed that dreams often returned to the same inner places, even when the outer world changed. Houses grew taller, streets grew louder, but dreams remained quiet. They continued to arrive in familiar ways. A slow beginning, a gentle confusion, an ending that dissolved rather than stopped. People began to trust this pattern, not because it was explained, but because it repeated itself without causing harm. In later ancient thought, dreams were sometimes described as a kind of night thinking. Not thinking with effort, not thinking toward answers, just thinking that happened when the mind was no longer being directed. This description felt accurate to many people. During the day, thoughts were pulled in many directions: work, family, survival. At night, that pulling stopped. Thoughts wandered instead. Dreams were seen as the natural result of this wandering. Some noticed that the more tiring the day, the calmer the dreams. Others noticed the opposite. Neither observation replaced the other. Dreams were allowed to contradict themselves. This permission mattered. It meant people did not feel responsible for what they dreamed. A troubling dream was not a failure. A pleasant one was not an achievement. Dreams were events, not actions. In homes where silence was valued, dreams fit easily. They did not demand conversation. A person might wake, feel the weight of a dream for a moment, then rise and continue the day without sharing it. This quiet handling kept dreams from becoming heavy. In some places, people believed dreams helped the mind forget, that they gently released memories that no longer needed to be held so tightly. This idea was comforting. Forgetting was not loss, it was rest. Dreams allowed the mind to loosen its grip without effort. Older memories faded into softer forms. Sharper edges wore down. This did not erase the past. It made it easier to carry. People also noticed that dreams often repeated simple actions, walking, waiting, looking for something. These actions had no clear ending. They mirrored life closely. Much of life was unfinished. Dreams reflected that without judgment. In philosophical circles, dreams were sometimes used as examples of how unreliable perception could be. But outside those discussions, dreams remained personal experiences. No one felt the need to explain them fully to others. This separation kept dreams gentle. They did not become tools. They stayed private, even when spoken aloud. As generations passed, dream explanations grew quieter. They moved away from certainty. People stopped trying to decide where dreams came from. They focused instead on how dreams felt. A dream that left calm behind was welcomed. A dream that left unease was allowed to pass without alarm. This emotional approach required no symbols. It required attention, not analysis. At night, people lay down knowing that dreams might come or they might not. Both outcomes were acceptable. This acceptance reduced effort. Sleep deepened. Dreams followed naturally. In this way, dreams became background companions, not guides, not warnings, just part of resting. As the night carried on, the mind drifted gently. Images appeared, then softened. By morning, only a trace remained, and that trace was enough. As nights continued to return, people grew even less concerned with holding on to dreams. They trusted the rhythm more than the content. A dream could arrive and leave without leaving a mark, and that was fine. Not every experience needed to stay. Some were meant only to pass through quietly, like a breeze moving through an open doorway and then gone again. People noticed that the mind did not cling to dreams the way it clung to waking worries. Daytime concerns followed a person through hours. Dreams did not. They slipped away on their own, often before the eyes were fully open. This difference felt important, though no one rushed to define it. In later, ancient thought, there was a growing sense that dreams belonged to a softer layer of life. Not the layer where decisions were made or where work was done, but a deeper, slower layer that existed underneath everything else. This layer did not speak clearly. It did not explain itself. It simply moved, steadily and quietly. Dreams seemed to come from there. People learned to recognize that layer through repetition, not through study, but through living. Night after night, sleep returned. Dream after dream came and went. Over time, this repetition created familiarity. The unknown became less threatening when it behaved predictably in its unpredictability. Some nights brought clear images. Some brought only a sense of motion or color or emotion without form. Both were accepted without preference. Dreams were not ranked. A vivid dream was not better than a faint one. They were different expressions of the same quiet process. In daily life, this understanding made people gentler with themselves. If the mind could wander freely at night, then perhaps wandering during the day was also natural. Dreams softened the expectation of constant control. They suggested that letting go was not dangerous. This idea settled slowly into ordinary thinking. People stopped blaming themselves for strange dreams. They stopped worrying about meaning. Dreams became less personal in a way, even though they belonged only to the dreamer. They were no longer reflections of character or fate. They were simply signs of being human. In homes where elders spoke sparingly, dreams were often met with silence. Not dismissal, just space. Silence allowed the dream to rest without being pulled apart. It allowed the dreamer to carry only what felt necessary. Children grew up seeing this calm response. They learned that dreams did not need to be feared or chased. This learning stayed with them into adulthood, carried quietly, like a habit of breathing. As time passed, dreams became woven into the background of nights. Lamps dimmed, bodies settled, the mind loosened, dreams followed. Nothing dramatic marked their arrival. Nothing dramatic marked their end. People sometimes noticed that the most peaceful dreams were also the least memorable. These dreams left behind only a sense of rest. No story, no image, just calm. This calm was valued, even if it could not be described. In this way, dreams were no longer separate from sleep. They were part of its texture, like the softness of a blanket, felt but not examined. Those who tried to observe their dreams closely often found that attention changed them. A dream held too tightly lost its ease. Because of this, many people preferred not to look too closely. They trusted the process more than the detail. Dreams did not require effort. They happened best when effort stopped. This understanding spread quietly. It did not replace older explanations. It did not argue with them. It simply rested alongside them, offering another way to feel at ease with the unknown. Nights continued. Its work without interruption. Sleep awry. Dreams followed or did not. Morning returned, and people, long ago, rested within that cycle, feeling no urgency to explain what had already learned how to pass gently on its own. Night comes back again, without being asked. It lowers itself over the world slowly, like a familiar blanket pulled into place. People long ago did not greet it with ceremony. They accepted it the way one accepts evening air cooling the skin. By this time in history, dreams had settled into their quiet role. They were no longer at the center of curiosity. They had become something that simply happened, like breathing becoming slower in sleep. As daily life grew more structured, dreams remained loose. Days filled with rules, rhythms, and expectations. Nights dissolved those shapes. People noticed this contrast without naming it. During the day, thoughts lined up behind tasks. At night, they drifted apart. Dreams followed the drifting. In later, ancient societies, people began to understand that the mind behaved differently when unobserved. Not in a scientific way, more like a personal awareness. They felt it rather than explained it. When the body rested, the mind stopped holding itself upright. It leaned. It wandered. Dreams were the sign of that leaning. People noticed that when sleep was deep, dreams felt distant and slow. When sleep was light, dreams hovered closer to waking. Neither state was preferred. Each had its place. In homes, where nights were long and quiet, people sometimes woke in the dark hours. Not startled, just awake. They might remember a dream in fragments, a movement, a sound, a presence. They did not rush to rebuild it. They let it remain incomplete. This acceptance shaped how dreams were understood. Completeness belonged to daylight. At night, partial things were enough. Some traditions suggested that dreams were conversations the mind had with itself. Not debates, not arguments, just quiet exchanges without conclusions. This idea felt gentle. It suggested that the mind did not need outside input to create meaning. It also suggested that meaning could exist without clarity. In daily life, people experienced this often. They felt certain emotions without knowing why. They carried thoughts that had no clear beginning. Dreams reflected that same pattern. They made no effort to explain themselves. As time passed, dreams were increasingly described as natural movements rather than messages. They flowed. They shifted. Nothing pushed them forward. This view reduced expectation. A dream no longer had to arrive with purpose. It could simply appear and fade. In families, this understanding was passed quietly, through tone rather than instruction. A calm response to a child's dream taught more than any explanation could. The child learned that nothing was wrong, that dreams did not signal danger. This calm became inherited as societies faced uncertainty. Dreams offered a place where uncertainty was normal. Nothing had to resolve. Nothing had to make sense. This made dreams oddly reassuring. They mirrored life honestly. People also noticed that dreams often ignored the future. They did not predict so much as repeat. They circled familiar themes, waiting, searching, observing. These themes felt ordinary. They belonged to being alive. In this period, dreams lost much of their symbolic weight. They were no longer keys to destiny. They were moments of internal movement. This shift did not disappoint people. It relaxed them. Dreams became easier to live with when they were not expected to guide. They could simply accompany sleep as lamps dimmed and voices softened. People lay down knowing what would happen next. Rest, possibly dreams. Then morning, nothing needed to be solved. Night held everything evenly. Dreams continued their quiet passage through human lives, doing their work without being named, without being measured, without being hurried. As nights repeated themselves, people grew used to the way dreams came and went without ceremony. They did not arrive with signals. They did not leave behind instructions. They simply moved through the sleeping mind, doing what they always did. In this period, people began to notice that dreams often followed the body more than belief. A tired body dreamed differently than a rested one. A hungry body dreamed differently than a full one. These observations were not written as rules. They were felt quietly through living. If someone worked long hours, dreams sometimes slowed. If someone rested too much, dreams wandered longer. Neither was judged. Dreams adjusted themselves without asking permission. People noticed that dreams did not argue with reality. They bent around it instead. A sound from the street might become part of a dream. A cold breeze might turn into a river or an open space. The sleeping mind did not separate inner and outer worlds carefully. It blended them gently. This blending felt natural in waking life. People were already influenced by weather, sound, and light. Dreams simply continued that influence quietly. As understanding deepened, Dreams were less often spoken of as visitors from outside. They were more often felt as movements within, not thoughts exactly, not memories exactly, something softer. People did not try to give this something a clear name. Naming felt unnecessary. In conversations, dreams became shorter, less description, more pauses. Someone might say they dreamed poorly or well without explaining why. That was enough. This change reflected trust. Trust that the listener did not need details. Trust that the dream did not need to be preserved. Over time, dreams became less dramatic in stories too. They stopped directing events. They stopped announcing fate. They became moments of rest within. The night darked in some traditions. It was believed that the mind cleaned itself during sleep. Dreams were seen as part of that quiet cleaning, not deliberate, not careful, just movement. This idea was not precise. It did not explain how, but it felt right. People understood cleaning as something that happened gradually. Dust settled, ash drifted. Nothing was scrubbed harshly. Dreams felt similar. They stirred thoughts without organizing them. They shifted attention without directing it. In families, people noticed that children often dreamed more vividly. Their dreams spilled into speech, into movement. Adults did not try to shape these dreams. They listened, or did not. Both responses were acceptable. Children learned that dreams did not need correction. This freedom followed them into adulthood. As belief systems grew more layered, dreams remained unchanged beneath them. They did not respond to doctrine. They did not reflect law. They reflected rest. In this way, dreams became one of the few spaces untouched by expectation. Nothing was required there. People did not succeed or fail in dreams. They simply experienced them as night deepened, thoughts slowed. Dreams followed that pace. Scenes unfolded without urgency. Events happened without consequence. This lack of pressure was part of their comfort. People lay down knowing that even if the world demanded effort tomorrow, the night asked for nothing. Dreams honored that silence. They moved quietly, leaving no trace that needed explanation. And by morning, whatever had passed through the mind had already softened, ready to be released without regret. As the hours of darkness stretched quietly onward, dreams continued their slow, unremarkable work. They did not change direction. They did not become clearer or more mysterious. They remained what they had always been, a soft movement through the resting mind. People long ago no longer watched for them. They trusted that dreams would arrive if they needed to, and disappear if they did not. This trust changed how nights felt. Sleep became deeper when nothing was expected from it. Dreams, freed from purpose, became gentler. They no longer carried the weight of interpretation. They were simply part of resting, like the steady rhythm of breath or the faint awareness of warmth and cold. People noticed that when dreams were left alone, they seemed kinder. Even uneasy dreams lost their sharpness when they were not examined too closely. Fear faded more quickly. Confusion softened. By morning, most dreams had already loosened their hold, leaving behind only a faint impression, like a mark in sand after wind had passed. In these later ancient times, there was a growing sensed that dreams did not belong to waking life at all. They belonged to a separate rhythm, one that did not need to connect cleanly with the day. Trying to force meaning into dreams felt unnecessary, even disruptive. Dreams preferred to remain where they were born, in the quiet space between consciousness and rest. People learned to let that space exist without interference. They did not pull dreams forward into daylight unless something about them lingered naturally. And if something lingered, it was carried lightly, without urgency. A feeling might follow someone through the morning. A mood might stay a little longer than usual. That was enough. No explanation was required. As nights repeated themselves, this gentle approach became habit. Dreams were no longer events. They were textures of sleep. Some nights were smooth, some were uneven. Both were acceptable. The mind adjusted without instruction, just as the body did. Those who paid attention noticed that peace often came not from pleasant dreams, but from the absence of struggle. Dreams that flowed without resistance, even if unclear, felt restful. This taught people something subtle. That comfort did not require understanding. That rest did not require control. This lesson extended beyond sleep. It softened waking life. As well, people became more tolerant of uncertainty. They learned that not everything needed to be resolved immediately. Dreams showed them this every night, quietly, without explanation. As dawn approached, dreams released their hold naturally. There was no sharp boundary between dreaming and waking. Just a slow return. Eyes opened. The world reappeared. Sounds resumed. Dreams slipped back into the background where they belonged. And so, as understanding moved forward through time, dreams remained steady. They did not grow louder. They did not fade away. They continued, unchanged, offering the same quiet companionship to those willing to rest without demanding answers. Night settles again in its familiar way. Not suddenly, not fully, just enough for the edges of the world to soften. People long ago felt this softening before they felt sleep itself. The sounds outside thinned. The body eased into stillness. Thoughts slowed without being asked. By this time, dreams were no longer something people waited for. They were simply part of the night, like darkness itself. Sometimes noticed, sometimes not. Always present in possibility. As societies grew older, there was a quiet shift in how people thought about the inner life. Not a sharp change, just a gradual leaning inward. People spent more time alone with their thoughts during the day. Travel took longer. Evenings stretched. Silence became familiar. Dreams fit easily into this quieter rhythm. Some began to feel that dreams were not visitors at all, but leftovers of wakefulness. Not discarded thoughts, but softened ones. Thoughts that had lost their urgency and drifted freely once effort stopped. This idea felt gentle. It did not challenge older beliefs. It did not insist on truth. It simply offered another way to feel at ease. A person might work all day, return home tired, eat slowly, and lie down without reflection. Dreams would come later, quietly arranging fragments of the day without intention. A face from the market, a path walked earlier, a word overheard and forgotten. None of these appeared whole. They arrived, altered, stretched, calm. People noticed that dreams rarely brought new things. They rearranged what already existed. This was comforting. It meant dreams were familiar, even when strange. In this period, dreams began to feel less like messages and more like movement. Something passing through rather than something arriving. Like air moving through an open room at night. You felt it, but you did not stop to question where it came from. This sense of movement mattered. It removed pressure. If dreams were movement, then they did not need meaning. Movement did not explain itself. People became less interested in remembering. Dreams, exactly. Precision belonged to daylight. At night, impressions were enough. A sense of calm, a trace of unease, a feeling of distance. These impressions were not analyzed. They were carried lightly, or not carried at all. In homes where nights were long, people sometimes woke briefly between dreams. Not fully awake, just aware. In those moments, they felt the mind shifting gently, like something turning over without effort. They did not name this sensation. They did not study it. They simply drifted back to sleep. Dreams continued without interruption. Over time, people began to associate good sleep not with pleasant dreams, but with quiet ones. Dreams that did not pull attention. Dreams that did not linger. These dreams were considered signs of rest. A vivid dream was not praised. A silent night was welcomed. This preference changed how dreams were valued. They were no longer experiences to collect. They were signs that the night had done its work. In this way, dreams became background rather than foreground. They supported sleep instead of competing with it. Some believed that dreams helped the mind release what it no longer needed, not intentionally, not deliberately, just by moving through it gently. This belief was not argued. It felt right because it felt calm. People noticed that worries often softened after sleep, even if dreams were not remembered. This suggested that dreams did not need to be conscious to be effective. They worked quietly, out of view. This quiet work earned trust. As trust grew, curiosity faded. People stopped asking what dreams meant and began accepting what they did. They rested. They passed time. They faded. Night after night, this pattern held. Sleep came. Dreams moved through. Morning returned. Nothing was disturbed. Nothing was demanded. And within that steady rhythm, dreams remained exactly where they belonged, inside the night, doing their quiet, unnoticed work while the world rested. As this way of living with dreams settled in, people stopped separating night from the rest of life so sharply. Sleep was not an escape. It was a continuation at a slower pace. Dreams followed that pace naturally. They did not interrupt rest. They blended into it like a current under still water. People noticed that when days were repetitive, dreams became simpler. When days were unsettled, dreams drifted more. This was not taken as a rule, only as a pattern that appeared now and then. No one tried to manage it. Life moved as it did. Dreams adjusted quietly. In later ancient communities, there was less interest in asking where dreams came from. That question felt distant. What mattered more was how a person felt upon waking. Rested or not. Heavy or light. Dreams were only part of that larger feeling. Someone might wake without remembering anything at all and still feel calm. This was seen as a good night. A successful night, though no one used that word. Success implied effort. Sleep did not require. Effort. Dreams were no longer treated as events that happened to someone. They were treated as signs that sleep had reached a certain depth. If dreams came, fine. If they did not, also fine. This attitude softened the boundary between dreaming and not dreaming. The absence of dreams was not seen as emptiness. It was seen as quiet fullness, like a room after voices have left, still holding warmth. As people grew older, many noticed that their dreams became fewer, or at least less vivid. This was not mourned. It was accepted as part of time passing. Youth was full of motion. Age carried stillness. Dreams reflected that shift without resistance. Some elders spoke of dreams as something that naturally faded, like sharp eyesight or quick movement. They did not speak with loss. They spoke with calm. The night did not owe anyone images. In daily routines, dreams became less likely to be discussed at all. Not because they were unimportant, but because they were understood. A shared understanding needs fewer words. When dreams were mentioned, it was often casually, a passing comment, a brief acknowledgement, then attention returned to the day. This casual handling protected dreams from becoming heavy. They stayed light because no one held them too tightly. In some quiet traditions, it was believed that the mind had its own rhythm, separate from thought. Dreams followed that rhythm. They did not belong to reason or memory alone. They belonged to rest. This belief did not ask people to change anything. It simply invited trust. Trust made sleep easier. As nights continued, people learned that trying to control dreams only made sleep restless. Those who chased meaning found less rest. Those who allowed dreams to come and go slept more deeply. This was not taught directly. It was learned slowly, through experience. Dreams responded to acceptance by becoming quieter, not disappearing, but settling, like animals that remain nearby when they are not disturbed. Over time, people grew comfortable with the idea that dreams did not belong to them in the way waking thoughts did. They passed through, but they were not owned. This idea reduced attachment to a strange dream did not need to be carried into the next day. A pleasant one did not need to be recreated. Dreams were complete within the night. This completeness brought peace. As belief systems continued to evolve, dreams stayed the same. They did not reflect changing rules or customs. They reflected sleep. This consistency made them reliable in a quiet way. People knew that no matter what changed during the day, the night would still arrive. Sleep would still come. Dreams would still move through or remain distant. That knowledge was steady, and so dreams continued, not as mysteries waiting to be solved, but as familiar companions of rest, moving gently through the dark hours, asking for nothing, leaving nothing behind that needed explanation. As night deepened and hours passed without notice, dreams settled even further into the background of sleeping life. They no longer stood apart as something separate. They blended so completely with rest that it was sometimes difficult to tell where sleep ended and dreams began. This blending felt natural. It required no attention. People long ago became familiar with this softness. They noticed that the best nights were often the ones that left no clear memory behind. A night could pass without images, without stories, without anything to carry into the morning, and still feel complete. Perhaps even more complete because nothing remained to be sorted or explained. Dreams, when they did appear, were lighter. Now, They moved slowly. They did not rush toward endings. They did not insist on being remembered. A person might wake with only the faint sense that something had happened, and even that sense would fade quickly as daylight settled in. This fading was no longer disappointing. It was reassuring. It meant the mind had rested without effort. In these later times, people understood that the night was not meant to deliver insight. It was meant to restore balance. Dreams were part of that balance, not because they taught lessons, but because they allowed motion where the day demanded stillness of thought. During the day, people held themselves together carefully. They followed paths. They completed tasks. They answered to others. At night, that holding loosened. Dreams appeared in that looseness, not as intrusions, but as signs that the mind had been allowed to relax its grip. Some describe dreams as the mind breathing, not in and out, but deeper and slower, without rhythm anyone could count. This image was never written as a rule. It was just something that felt right to imagine. If the mind could breathe, then dreams were the movement of that breath. This way of thinking removed fear completely. Breathing was natural. Rest was natural. Dreams followed naturally from both. People noticed that when they accepted this, sleep came more easily. There was no waiting for dreams, no disappointment if they did not arrive, no effort to hold on to them if they did. Dreams were free to come and go as they pleased. In quiet homes, nights passed with little interruption. A person might turn over. Someone might stir. The sounds of sleep itself filled the darkness. Dreams moved through all of this without drawing attention. As dawn approached, the world shifted slowly. Light crept in. Sounds returned. Dreams retreated. Without resistance, there was no sense of loss. Nothing had been taken away. People rose and continued their lives, carrying with them the calm of having rested. Dreams, whether remembered or not, had already completed their work. In this way, long ago, dreams became trusted companions of the night. Not guides, not messages, just quiet movements within sleep. They did not need explanation to belong. They belonged because night returned, because sleep followed, because the mind softened when allowed to rest. And as each night ended and another began somewhere else, dreams continued their gentle passage, unchanged by time, unchanged by belief, remaining exactly what they had always been, a quiet part of being human at rest.